Hello, this is Jed Morgan, and welcome to the second in the series of WebExes, where we cover the installation configuration of the iQPBX platform. So we've been through the hardware. WebEx 1 was covered the hardware and architecture, and before we actually connect to the system and do some configuration, I just want to do a little overview of iQPBX and also point out a couple of prerequisites to installation and configuration, which are basically that engineers should have a knowledge of PBX systems or telephone systems, basic telephony, and some network knowledge, LAN fundamentals. So first slide we see on our screen here is just a basic system setup where we see the connections for the extensions and the trunks on the back of the system, the LAN connection connecting to a switch, and this is on the customer's LAN. Also switch connected to a router along with the IP SIP endpoints for the desk phones, and link out through a router to the internet. And also when we have GSM gateways connected, they simply use the aerial attached to get the connection to the GSM network. Okay, just a little diagram in a basic structure for the iQPBX. I want to cover off a table to do with capacities and explain one of our most important issues, which is concurrent calls. We have the heading concurrent calls here on the table, and for each model number there's a representative maximum number of calls that can take place on the system at any one time. So this can be an internal to internal, internal to voicemail, internal to an IVR, external to IVR, etc. Any call traffic is classed as a concurrent call. So on the 250 we have 8 concurrent calls, on the 600 there are 22 concurrent calls, and the 2000 up to 60. Now when I said in the hardware, in the first WebEx, where we remove a 0 on the model number indicates how many extensions we can register to the system, the 250 would be 25, and the iQPBX 60, and the 2000 would be 200. But there is a little scope for expansion on each of the models, where if there is not much call traffic on the system, then we can increase the maximum number of users to 30 for the 250, 100 for the 600, and 300 for the 2000. And this is simply where we look at a ratio of the number of calls that might take place on the system to the number of required users. So a little bit of expansion is possible. Voicemail, we have 4,000 minutes of embedded voicemail in the 250 and 600, 3,000 minutes in the 2000 on board. The 2000 obviously can have the added SATA hard drive installed inside the system, where we can store more voicemail messages, call recordings, etc. And also we can use an off-box storage medium, which we'll come to a little later on. The rest of the table looks at capacities for us for the relevant options within there, things like ring groups, inbound, outbound routes, number of trunks we can use, and other optional features at the bottom of the table there. We look at DSAs, number of DSA connections, number of call queues we can create to call center, call queues, music on hold files, etc. Speed dial numbers is a little bit of a limitation for the systems. However, if Yealink phones are installed, or perhaps most of the SIP endpoints are installed, they can use an external storage like an LDAP server, where you can have an awful lot more depending on how many the customer wishes to store. You can search by name or number if you're using the external storage server, for example an LDAP. So scope for expansion on the speed dial numbers through an external server. But on the system, 128 for the 250 and 600, and 256 for the 2000. Music on hold files, yes, we can upload, install our own music on hold files, and that gives you the maximums. When we configure the iQPBX, when we get on to configure it, there's a logical order, and we're going to look at the logical order and look at the things we need to set up with the system, the network, prompts that we need to to you upload to the system before we actually configure any ring groups, call queues, etc. So there is a logical order for setting up the iQPBX. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to end this little WebEx here. It's just a simple overview before we actually get down to the nitty-gritty and connect to the system. So we'll continue in the next WebEx with actual connection and begin some basic settings. Okay, many thanks. Speak to you soon.